For more than 5 decades, Harrison Ford has ruled the silver screen as the embodiment of the indomitable hero, from the daring Han Solo to the fearless Indiana Jones. He is the face before whom even Hollywood bows its head. Far from the blinding lights of fame, Ford retreats to his sprawling 4,000-acre ranch in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, a land of deep blue skies, whispering pines, and what seems like absolute silence. Yet, hidden within the dense woods surrounding his property, locals whisper of a secret kept behind wooden fences, a forbidden garden that only those who once worked for Harrison Ford dare to mention. They say the man who once admitted to using marijuana during the filming of Star Wars has turned a secluded corner of his ranch into a discreet cannabis garden meticulously tended like a personal treasure, a place where no one but Ford himself is allowed to step. As rumors about the Wyoming ranch spread like wildfire, the public couldn't help but shiver with curiosity. Is this merely the eccentric pastime of a reclusive movie legend? Or is the Wyoming property concealing something far more mysterious? A hidden network even Hollywood knows nothing about. What is Harrison Ford's life really like today, and what might he be hiding within the vast grounds of his ranch? Harrison Ford was born in 1942 in Chicago, into a middle-class family where his father worked as a voice actor and his mother had been a model. Despite growing up surrounded by art and creativity, Ford was a quiet, shy, and introverted boy. While studying at Ripon College in Wisconsin, he enrolled in a drama class, simply to overcome his fear of speaking in front of others. Yet that single decision changed the course of his life. After graduation, Ford drove his old car west toward California, chasing a dream of working in film. The early years were filled with minor, forgettable roles. To support his family, he turned to carpentry, a job that seemed far removed from art, yet it taught him precision, patience, and a deep respect for work qualities that would later form the foundation of his acting career. It was this very craft that unexpectedly led Ford back to Hollywood when he met George Lucas, the man who would later cast him as Han Solo in Star Wars 1977. The film propelled Ford to international stardom, and 4 years later he cemented his legendary status as Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark 1981. From there, through timeless works such as The Fugitive 1993, Air Force One 1997, and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny 2023. Harrison Ford remained the embodiment of a calm, resilient, and honest artist, proof that true success comes only to those who persist and stay true to themselves. Now in his 80s, Harrison Ford has retreated to his vast ranch in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where he seeks peace alongside Callista Flockhart, far from the glare of Hollywood. Yet beneath that tranquil exterior, whispers about a mysterious hidden greenhouse on his ranch continue to stir curiosity and speculation. Spanning more than 800 acres, Harrison Ford's Wyoming ranch, purchased back in 1980, has become forever intertwined with the name of the silver screen hero himself. From above, the scenery unfolds like a living painting. Majestic, snow-capped mountains rising proudly in every direction, sunlight shimmering across endless emerald meadows that stretch to the horizon. Cutting through this landscape, the Snake River winds like a silver ribbon, slipping past golden summer fields and solemn pine forests that grow quiet as winter descends. At the heart of this wild expanse stands a simple log home barely over 300 square feet, surprisingly modest for a man whose fortune reaches into the hundreds of millions. The house includes 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a cedar shingled roof, and wide windows framing a direct view of the Teton Range. In the living room, a stone fireplace glows warmly each night, casting flickering light over old family photographs. a tender slice of warmth amid the frozen wilderness. Ford once said he enjoys cooking for himself after a long day outdoors because there's nothing more real than preparing your own dinner in your own home. Step beyond the porch, and the world opens up rolling grass fields, horse stables, barns, and winding trails that disappear into the forest. Ford is a true nature lover and a skilled horseman, a habit he's kept since his Indiana Jones days. The horses here aren't for show. They're companions in every sense, carrying him through mist-covered plains at dawn. From the balcony on the second floor, the view could be mistaken for a postcard mornings bathed in soft sunlight through the thin veil of mist. Nights deep and black filled with thousands of glittering stars, the only light untouched by Hollywood. Ford often sits there in silence, listening to the wind whisper through the cedar roof. On some days, he pilots his helicopter around the valley and lands near the house just to watch the sun disappear behind the Teton Peaks. This is also the home where he and Callista Flockhart raised their son in near absolute tranquility. No elite schools, no paparazzi lenses, only nature work, and a set of simple values working with one's hands, respecting the land, loving animals, and living truthfully. Friends say that in Wyoming, Harrison Ford seems to become an entirely different man. He drives himself into the town of Jackson to shop for groceries, stops by the repair shop, chats with locals, and no one bothers to ask about Star Wars. Yet few know that behind what appears to be a peaceful life lies a massive secret, something Harrison Ford has tried to keep hidden for years, deep within the forests of Wyoming. According to those who once worked on the ranch behind the old horse stable, stands a greenhouse that no one is allowed to enter. By day, it looks like nothing more than an abandoned woodworking shed, a saw table, stacks of timber, and a few dusty tools. But when night falls, a faint red glow seeps from within, reflecting against the glass walls like a signal from another world. People whisper that inside lies a modern hydroponic system, a place where Harrison Ford quietly tends to rows of rare plants, each one carefully labeled and cataloged. Sometimes around midnight, his silhouette appears there, flashlight in hand, inspecting each pot as if guarding a treasure that belongs only to him. He always goes alone, recalled one gardener. No one is ever allowed near that place, not unless they want to lose their job by morning. Some even say that Harrison Ford has repeatedly flown his private plane to Colorado, carrying crates labeled technical supplies, but in reality they contain special strains of cannabis plants. On certain nights, residents around Jackson Hole recounted hearing the roar of jet engines tearing through the darkness, followed by the flash of landing lights flickering in the forest right behind Ford's ranch. He always flies alone, a local resident said, and every time he does, the whole valley carries a faint, peculiar scent. The kind of smell everyone recognizes but no one dares to confirm. But the story doesn't end there. Many believe that Harrison Ford's habit of growing cannabis stems from a wild and tumultuous past, a time when he was a wandering carpenter in 1960s Los Angeles, when Hollywood was still a distant dream and the smell of weed smoke was practically a symbol of freedom for an entire generation. Back then, Ford was a familiar face at all-night parties filled with rock music, hard liquor, and hazy white smoke. Friends recall him as the crazy carpenter who always brought the best stuff, a man whose reputation was known throughout the underground artist scene. Among the drifters who hung out with him in those days was a legendary California cannabis grower who passed down to Ford the secrets of cultivation, as if teaching a disciple how to select seeds, mix nutrient solutions, mask the smell with pine resin, and detect the slightest changes in the leaves with just a single breath. Those skills, seemingly buried in the dust of time, ultimately became a hidden legacy in his mind. Decades later, in the cold mountains of Wyoming, those seeds sprouted into a secret garden, one that only Harrison Ford knew how to nurture and shield from the world's prying eyes. Some even claim that before becoming a star, Harrison Ford was a silent supplier for an entire underground world of artists, from the wild parties of the Doors and the Mamas and the Papas to his close friend George Lucas. An old friend from California recalled that Ford understood plants the way he understood airplane engines: meticulous, passionate, and eerily precise. He could distinguish the scent of each strain with just a slight inhale, the friend said, and he'd often joke that a good actor must know how to feel the scent of freedom itself. As old age crept in following plane crashes that left him with lingering back pain, Ford is said to have returned to that old green as a way to soothe his body and remind himself that freedom still lingered somewhere among the mountains and forests. But that's not where it ends. In his youth, Harrison Ford was entangled in a series of scandals, with infidelity being the most significant crack in his image as Hollywood's model man. In 1976, on the set of Star Wars in London, Harrison Ford, then 33 years old, married with 2 children, met Carrie Fisher, a spirited and rebellious 19-year-old. Their eyes met amidst cigarette smoke and the glow of camera lights, and in that single moment, the line between acting and desire blurred. They threw themselves into each other like 2 people fleeing from themselves, fueled by loneliness, whiskey, and the sweet sting of guilt. Carrie Fisher later said, "He was too handsome to resist and too dangerous to keep by my side." Their affair lasted only 3 months, but it was enough to haunt Carrie Fisher for a lifetime. In her 2016 memoir, The Princess Diarist, she wrote that they lived in a prolonged intoxication amid London's cold rain whiskey and promises never spoken aloud. Each night, Ford would quietly drive through the wet streets, dropping her off at her hotel before disappearing into the fog. No promises, no messages, only the lingering scent of whiskey and cigarette smoke clinging to his leather jacket. When the story came to light 40 years later, Hollywood was stunned. Harrison Ford neither denied nor explained, offering only a brief comment, "I was warned." That silence carried more weight than any confession, and so the affair between Han Solo and Leia Organa needed no confirmation. Everyone knew it had been real. Not long after that affair, Harrison Ford's first marriage fell apart. He divorced Mary Marquardt in 1979, and since then, he has never mentioned Carrie Fisher's name again, until the day she passed away. When asked by a reporter, Ford only sighed. "She was the most brilliant woman I ever met, and there will never be anyone like her again." Short, calm, but enough to leave Hollywood choked up. For everyone understood that behind that silence was not just regret, but the trace of a mistake even he could not erase. Beyond his sprawling ranch in Wyoming, Harrison Ford also owns a luxurious penthouse in Manhattan, a perfect reflection of the duality in his life. In stark contrast to the rustic, tranquil expanse of the mountains, this apartment is a symbol of peak extravagance in the heart of New York, a world where every detail exudes the sophistication of a Hollywood legend. Located on the top floor of a prestigious building in Tribeca, the penthouse spans over 5,500 square feet, approximately 510 square meters, designed as a private oasis in the sky. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls offer a panoramic view of Manhattan, where the city's lights shimmer on the Hudson River as night falls. Inside, the space is furnished in a contemporary luxury style, a seamless blend of dark walnut wood, stainless steel, and Italian marble. The living room, nearly 200 square meters, features a cloud-veined stone fireplace, handcrafted Italian leather chairs, antique Persian rugs, and a sophisticated Bang & Olufsen sound system. Ford stays here for special occasions, attending major Hollywood events, promoting new films, or simply seeking a change of pace after months immersed in Wyoming's nature. On the rare days spent in New York, he, Callista, and their son Liam might catch a Broadway show savor cuisine in Soho, or sit quietly on the balcony watching the sunset over the Hudson River, where the Hollywood legend briefly sets aside his wings of freedom to savor a moment of peace amidst the pinnacle of luxury. Amid the noise, glamour, and never-ending rumors surrounding his private life movement is the way Harrison Ford chooses to escape it all, a form of escape he calls freedom. Harrison Ford's car collection is not as vast as those of many other Hollywood stars. He doesn't chase quantity or collect flashy supercars to draw attention. Instead, each vehicle in his garage carries its own story, much like the roles he's chosen to play: few but refined, simple yet profoundly meaningful. One of the first gems in his collection is a 1955 Jaguar XK140, a classic car Ford refers to as his time machine. With its low-profile, sleek curves and six-cylinder engine, the XK140 embodies the post-war spirit of revival, a time when people rediscovered their love for speed and freedom. Its current market value is around $150,000, but for Ford, its true worth lies in the moment. He grips the steering wheel, feeling the harmony between man and machine, a sensation that only comes when both sides understand each other, as he once put it. Alongside it is a 1961 Jaguar E-Type, a car Enzo Ferrari once called the most beautiful car ever made. Ford acquired it in the 1980s at the height of his fame, but rarely drives it in the city. The E-Type often sits quietly in his Wyoming garage, awakened only on crisp autumn mornings when fog blankets the roads, and nothing exists but Ford the engine and the distant mountain range. For Ford, driving the E-Type isn't about showing off. It's a ritual, a moment to touch the timeless beauty of a bygone era. By the 1990s, as Hollywood evolved, Ford found a different kind of elegance in a 1993 Mercedes-Benz SL500. Gone was the raw roar of British engines, replaced by the smooth, steady precision of German engineering. The convertible V8 SL500 represents a calmer, more mature phase of his life, a time when one no longer drives to prove something, but simply to savor the feeling of freedom. Valued today at about $40,000, Ford maintains it meticulously as if it were a milestone of his middle years. His garage isn't limited to nostalgia. As a man passionate about technology and aviation, Ford embraces the future with a Tesla Model S and Model X modern electric vehicles that reflect their owner's progressive mindset. He's spoken of being captivated by the blend of power and silence in electric cars, like flying without ever leaving the ground. These aren't just vehicles. They're a statement from a man who has spent a lifetime among engines and propellers. The future of motion doesn't need to be loud. Yet Ford's garage is not a place of ostentation, but rather a small workshop, orderly, lit by soft yellow light with the faint scent of oil and metal. He enjoys personally checking every bolt, wiping dust from the car bodies, and sometimes dismantling an engine just to study its inner workings. This passion mirrors his days as a carpenter, the same spirit of understanding, deeply touching authentically, and cherishing every tiny detail that creates perfection. If the open road is where Harrison Ford finds tranquility, the sky is the only place where he feels absolute freedom. For decades, his airplanes have been more than mere vehicles. They are extensions of himself, wings fused to his soul. When Hollywood quiets down, when the studio lights dim, Ford dons his old leather jacket, puts on his pilot's cap, and steps into the cockpit. There he is no longer a star, but simply a man seeking his own rhythm. His passion for flying doesn't stem from fame, but from patience and curiosity, two qualities that have shaped his entire career. After the dazzling 1970s with Star Wars and Indiana Jones, Ford began learning to fly with astonishing dedication. He didn't just want to fly, he wanted to master every mechanism, every control, every principle of operation. His instructor once remarked, he didn't learn to control the plane, he learned to become part of it. Today, within Ford's vast portfolio of assets alongside his homes and classic cars, is a diverse fleet of aircraft, each telling a distinct chapter of his life. The Waco Taper-Wing Biplane. A classic double-wing plane valued at $203,000 is one of his earliest treasures. With its open cockpit wooden frame covered in fabric and raw engine sound, it transports him back to an era when flying was an art, not a technology. Ford has said, "When I fly the Waco with the wind and sunlight around me, I feel like I'm stepping into another century." Alongside it are the Aviat Husky and Beechcraft Bonanza rugged, reliable propeller planes, strong enough to land in the most treacherous locations. He often uses them to survey the forests and rivers around Wyoming, or to transport researchers on conservation missions. One of Ford's most cherished aircraft is the de Havilland Beaver, valued at approximately $500,000 a plane, capable of landing on both land and water. It reflects the essence of its owner, powerful, versatile, and always yearning to reach places untouched by human footprints. For longer journeys, Ford relies on the Cessna 208B Grand Caravan, a turboprop worth nearly $2 million, which he often uses to fly between Wyoming and California. "I like planes that know their limits," he once said, "and respect them." His love for the skies has tested him time and again. In 2015, while piloting a vintage Ryan PT-22 Recruit, the engine suddenly failed shortly after takeoff. In that life-or-death moment, the man in his 70s remained calm, executing an emergency landing on a nearby golf course. The plane was shattered, and Ford was seriously injured, but just a few months later, he returned to the cockpit without hesitation. "It was just a lesson in humility before the sky," he remarked. Beyond his classic propeller planes, Ford also owns a Bell 407GX, a $3 million helicopter equipped with advanced navigation systems. He frequently uses it for rescue and conservation missions, patrolling the Hudson River monitoring pollution, or even personally transporting injured people from remote, rugged areas of Idaho. When praised by the media, he responded with a simple statement: "I just do what a pilot should do." His collection also includes a Pilatus PC-12 valued at $4 million and a Cessna Citation 525 jet worth $5 million, but the crown jewel of his fleet is the Citation Sovereign 680, a mid-range jet priced at nearly $18 million, a perfect symbol of power and sophistication. Despite its luxurious appearance with premium leather interiors and transcontinental flight capabilities, Ford doesn't see it as a status symbol. To him, every flight is simply a way to experience the world in its most primal form, when a person leaves the ground behind, escaping all the noise below, and is left with nothing but the sky. From an unknown carpenter to a silver screen legend, Harrison Ford has not only built a career, he has crafted a legacy. And true to the way he lives, his wealth is measured not just in money, but in respect, cultural impact, and the ability to endure through time. At over 80 years old, Harrison Ford possesses an estimated net worth of around $300 million, an impressive figure. But what's even more remarkable is how he earned it. Without ostentation, Without capitalizing on his fame for side businesses or diving into risky investments, nearly all of Ford's wealth comes from his film career, from the roles he meticulously selected over more than half a century. His journey resembles a steadily rising graph, never marked by sudden spikes, but never stalling either. When he starred in Star Wars: A New Hope, 1977, Ford earned just $10,000, a modest salary for an unknown actor. But that film changed the course of cinematic history, and with it, his life. 3 years later, for The Empire Strikes Back 1980, his pay rose to $100,000. By Return of the Jedi, in 1983, it reached $500,000. However, it was Indiana Jones that made him one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors. Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls 2008 alone brought Ford $65 million, including profit-sharing, a record in the industry. In 2015, when he returned for The Force Awakens, he earned a $15 million base salary, plus a percentage of the profits, pushing his total compensation to nearly $25 million. Ford has always known when to step forward and when to step back. He never takes a role just to stay relevant, but to tell a story worth telling. Because of that, his career has never faltered from poor choices. Even though he appears on screen only every few years, each of his films leaves a mark, from Blade Runner and The Fugitive to Air Force One and What Lies Beneath. Beyond acting, Ford also earns a percentage of image royalties, a steady stream of revenue from millions of products featuring Han Solo and Indiana Jones across the globe. It's a rare kind of commercial legacy that few actors have ever achieved. Contrary to his billionaire star image, Ford lives simply. No watch collections, no supercars, no private islands or luxury yachts. In Wyoming, he drives his own pickup to the local market and chats with townsfolk like any other farmer. For Ford, money is not a symbol of status, but a reward for work and restraint. He doesn't use it to buy more. He uses it to preserve, to protect the land's forests and places that bring him peace. In interviews, Ford has admitted that his biggest expenses aren't luxury goods, but airplane maintenance and forest conservation, two passions forever tied to freedom and responsibility. And amid his immense wealth and Hollywood's glittering world, Harrison Ford still devotes a remarkable portion of his life to something few ever see: quiet acts of charity that reveal the man behind the legend. For many years, he has served as Vice Chairman of Conservation International, one of the most respected environmental organizations in the world, active in more than 30 countries. Ford is not a figurehead. He takes part directly in campaign strategic meetings and has even represented the organization before the United Nations on several occasions. In his 2018 speech, his voice was calm, deep, and firm. Nature doesn't need people. People need nature. The statement echoed worldwide, not as a slogan, not as drama, but as a simple truth powerful enough to silence the entire hall. Yet for Harrison Ford, protecting the planet doesn't end with words. In 2010, he donated 389 acres of his Wyoming ranch to Conservation International, pledging to preserve it forever. The land borders the Snake River, home to hundreds of species of native birds and wildlife, and Ford protects it like a sacred ground, a place where nature is allowed to breathe untouched by human interference. No mansion expansions, no leisure constructions. He lets nature run its course, just as he once said, "I don't own this land. I just get to live with it." His passion for aviation has also become a mission for the planet. Flying his $3 million Bell 407GX helicopter, he has patrolled the Hudson River, documenting pollution and industrial waste and forwarding the data to researchers and local authorities. On several occasions, Ford has even piloted rescue missions himself, saving stranded hikers in the mountains of Idaho. The media praised him as a hero, but his only response was, "I just did what any pilot should do." For him, flying is not only passion, it's perspective. When you look from above, he said, you see clearly what humans are destroying and what's still worth saving. Alongside his conservation work, Harrison Ford supports numerous humanitarian causes. He contributes to Operation Smile, which provides free surgeries for children with cleft lips, the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which fulfills dreams for critically ill children, and the Elton John AIDS Foundation, supporting the fight against HIV/AIDS. He also donates to Autism Speaks, helping children with autism, a cause close to his heart, as someone in his own family lives with the condition. Without cameras or publicity, Ford often appears quietly sending gifts, offering encouragement, or visiting hospitals without announcement. As he once said, "If you do something good just so people can see it, that good deed has already lost half its value." One of the projects he cherishes most is the Young Eagles program, founded by the Experimental Aircraft Association, EAA. For over 2 decades, Ford has personally flown more than 280 children, giving them their very first experience of flight. When a child takes off for the first time, he said, they don't just see the sky, they see their own potential. For him, that's the greatest gift of all, planting faith in people through the very wings of freedom he's always lived by. Throughout his journey, Harrison Ford has received numerous prestigious honors, from Harvard University's Global Environmental Citizen Award in 2002 to the Founders Award from the EAA in 2019. Yet he has never boasted about them. Certificates are easy to keep, he once said. Keeping the forests green, that's the hard part. In his Wyoming log home near a window overlooking the valley hangs a black and white photograph of an ancient forest canopy. Beneath the frame, a small plaque is engraved with the words, "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children." Perhaps that single line best captures Harrison Ford's philosophy of life: to live, simply protect what is precious, and leave behind a better world for those who follow. Ford's personal life, much like the lands he calls home, is made up of layers, each one a quiet but enduring chapter of its own. His first wife, Mary Marquardt, was his companion through the years of struggle, the woman who stood by him when fame was still a distant dream. They met when Ford was just a young man torn between carpentry and acting, married in 1964, and had 2 sons, Benjamin and Willard. During those difficult years, Mary was the family's pillar of strength, while Ford worked tirelessly, juggling odd jobs and small film roles to keep his Hollywood dream alive. But the first glimmers of fame also brought the first shadows. The marriage ended in 1979 after Ford's affair was exposed, a painful blow that drove Mary away for good. Still, Ford has never denied her role in shaping his life. In later interviews, he spoke of Mary with gratitude and respect, as if she were the one person who truly believed in him before the world ever did. Their 2 sons went on to build lives far from the spotlight. Benjamin became a chef, while Willard pursued a career in sports management. In 1983, Ford married for the second time to Melissa Matheson, the brilliant screenwriter of E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Together they had 2 children, Malcolm and Georgia, the result of a relationship both romantic and demanding. While Ford spent long stretches on film sets, Matheson quietly raised their children and continued writing. Their marriage lasted more than 20 years before ending in divorce in 2004, yet the bond between them was never truly broken. When Melissa passed away in 2015, Ford quietly attended her memorial service, sitting in the back row with his head bowed the entire time. Family members later said he silently wept, a rare glimpse of emotion from a man known for few words but great depth. Then destiny brought him to Callista Flockhart, the actress who rose to fame as the lead in Ally McBeal. They met at the Golden Globe Awards in 2002. Ford was in his 60s, and Callista was more than 20 years younger. What began as a romance doubted by the media eventually became one of Hollywood's quietest and most enduring love stories. For more than 2 decades, their life together has remained remarkably calm and grounded. Ford once said, "I didn't think I would ever fall in love again until I met her." In 2010, they were officially married, and Ford adopted Callista's son, Liam. Locals often spot him picking Liam up from school, taking him out for a drive, or fixing his bike in the yard. No bodyguards, no pretense, just a father in an old leather jacket smiling in the simplicity of everyday life. Though he lives far from Hollywood, Harrison Ford has maintained deep and lasting friendships with old companions like Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, and Mark Hamill. When someone faces hardship, Ford is often the first to call not for publicity, but simply to say, "I'm here if you need me." Perhaps it is this quiet loyalty and sincerity rather than fame or fortune that has made Harrison Ford one of the most respected men in Hollywood. In recent years, while many of his contemporaries have retired, Ford continues to work not for recognition, but because, as he says, "Work keeps my mind sharp." On the set of Indiana Jones and The Dial of Destiny 2023, he was still performing most of his own stunts even at over 80. When asked why he doesn't use a double, he just smiled. "Because I want to feel the real wind." And that is the true story of Harrison Ford. Not just a hero on screen, but a man of contradictions, passion, and perseverance. From the hidden garden of Wyoming to the open skies, he pilots himself through from the dazzling lights of Hollywood to the silence behind an old wooden door. His life stands as proof that freedom isn't found in fame. It's found in the way we choose to live amid the noise. If you love stories about the people behind the legends, about the places that hold the soul of Hollywood hit, like so YouTube knows you want more, and subscribe so you don't miss our next journey where we'll explore more lives, homes, and legacies quietly telling their stories across this world.